Home at last. It feels so good to be home. You know, in the last 4 months, I have traveled 27,000 miles, and that equates to 45 nights in strange beds. Well, I usually take more quilts than my clothes, plus I take a few funny hats for entertainment. Well, as a tribute to all that traveling across America, I present the Gad About Quilt in my favorite red, white, and blue. Well, Nancy Loftus pieced this striking quilt, and Deborah Jenks did the overall machine quilting just for a perfect finish. Well, in this quilt, the red and blue pinwheels stand out, and the pinwheels are connected with the hourglass patches. Nancy did her own creative border, and it is very nice. Well, Teresa Barnes made twin baby quilts, and she finished them with a striped border. Now, just with a change in color values, you can accent different parts of the blocks. We'll just focus on the yellow and blue part of the block, which appears as a pinwheel in this quilt. Well, she changed the placement of that same blue and yellow, and now the two fabrics appear as an hourglass. Netta Virgin machine quilted an overall pattern, and the quilting just adds the charm. Well, my sister Patty is quite a Gad About person too, with teaching on the road 7 months of the year. Well, she made this good-looking 9-block wall hanging, shades of navy, just a touch of red and sage green. And then she framed the wall hanging with a mitered striped border. It's just beautiful. Well, we get to our classes usually by plane, but when we put on our big show in Paducah, Kentucky, we load our books and our quilts and our funny hats into a truck that drives onto a train and rides the rails to Kentucky. But wherever we go, we just have a great time. But no more gadding. We've got to get started. I'm going to make mine just like Patty's. You know how sisters are, always copying each other. Well, this is the block. There's actually 4 different units to it. And Patty did a great job selecting her fabric. That's her specialty. This is her large scale print, her medium scale print, her small, and then this one reads solid from a distance. I'm going to start right here with the light and the dark. And that's the piece, the unit that makes the hourglass. They are strips, they're 2.5-inch strips. So you just take those 2 sets of strips, sew them together, set the seam, and press it towards the dark. Then you measure it with a 6.5-inch triangle square up ruler. We want to find out, whenever we place the very tip of the ruler, how wide this is. And I'm just lining it up. Let's see. I am right at 6 1/4. Let's see, from this point straight down and then going out, I see it's 6 1/4. Well, you know, you can sure get messed up if you don't remember it's 6 1/4. So I'm just going to take a piece of tape and line it up on the back side of the ruler from edge to edge at 6 1/4. Ooh, let me just trim that off right there. And then even whenever you get busy talking, you always have the right measurement. Okay, so I'm just going to put it back down here at 6 1/4, line it up along there, and with the cutter, just trim straight up, turn it, and go right back down. That piece right here, oh, you can just take it and get rid of it. Then take the ruler and turn it the opposite direction and line up that 6 1/4-inch line right across the top. Let me move this out of the way. Slide that in there, looking good. So then you just cut in this direction, and you just keep on going up and down with your ruler going across the strip, and you actually get 4 of each one of them out of one set of strips. You'll have 4 of these and 4 of these. Well, that's the easy part. That's the stripping. I want to go on to the next set of instructions, and that's for what becomes the pinwheel. Whenever you look at the medium and the medium dark, you don't see a pinwheel yet. You need 4 to put together. Those come from 6.5-inch squares. So always place them consistently, right sides together. I have the light medium on the dark medium on the bottom. Just place them right sides together and draw a diagonal line corner to corner. Well, I put it on a piece of sandpaper. That block is not shifting at all. Well, the technique that I want to show you ends up with patches that are the same. You see how all 4 of those are all turned in the same direction. So it's a unique technique. You use that 1/4-inch seam. Boy, we always do. And right up at the top, you drop your 1/4-inch foot on the left side of that diagonal line. Pedal right down along there. And then whenever you get to that middle line, use your needle down. I'm right on that center line right there. Raise your presser foot and actually stitch on that center line right across to 1/4 inch on the other side of that line. Then I'm just going to drop my foot and go down on the right side of the second line. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I went down, zoom, 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 straight across on the line, and then 1/4 inch down the other way. And then you just repeat that on the second side. Drop your presser foot down, go right down the left side, needle down on that center line, raise the presser foot, and hopefully your 1/4 inch foot will help you get it 1/4 inch away. So now I'm past that line, and then you just head right down the other side. Now stitching like this creates a bit of a pinwheel right in the very center. So you can see how it goes down, across, and then down, across. That's looking good. Okay, so now all you do is just take this block, set the seam before you cut it apart, and then just cut on the lines that you just stitched. It's pretty amazing how this all works out so that whenever you open them up, they're going to be the same. Okay, one drawn line, turn it around on the second drawn line, stack them up, and I'll show you because now all of those seams are exactly the same. Now take them and stack them with the dark medium on the top. Set that seam, open it, and just press it open. Oh, it is looking good. This block is so easy. Let me get these all finished, and I'll show you how to sew the pieces together. Ta-da! I have my pieces done. Now this is the first unit from the 2.5-inch strips. Here is the long light on this side with the dark triangle, and then the second piece is the long dark with the light triangle. Then the second unit is from the medium fabrics, the light medium and the dark medium. All 4 are exactly the same. Now I lined them up like this. You make 2 different sets. Just take this piece and flip it over to the triangles. And the reason that I'm doing that is because whenever you stitch right down along, then this seam is going down. It goes down naturally. You don't have to fight your seams. So you have to just think about everything. So you get the units all set up. They end up having locking seams, and they're beautiful. They are oversized. The 2 different pieces are not exactly the same size. So just flip them right sides together and line up this side along here. This is where I'm going to stitch along. Use your stiletto to lift them up, line them up like this, and just assembly line sew them right through one after the other. For each block, you need to have a total of 4 or 2 of each of the different units. Let me just push this one right behind and we'll be going. You know, I have taught in every state but Arkansas. I'm just going to have to get to Arkansas and teach. That's just amazing. I have taught in tents. I've taught in a bunkhouse. I've taught in a steamboat on the Mississippi. But I think the best was when I taught in Hawaii. Oh my gosh. I was teaching in a classroom right next to the circus. And in the middle of my class, there was an elephant that escaped from the circus just ran right past my classroom. Boy, I don't think anything has ever topped the elephant. Well, I want to show you how to square these units up now. They become 5.5-inch squares, so I'm going to use the triangle square up ruler again. Okay, take and turn them so that you have the two triangles on the top. I'm focusing on this seam right along here, the one going up and down and the one going across here. They're 5.5-inch squares, and so you take the 5.5-inch line on the ruler and put it on the stitching right across here, and then this perpendicular line goes right on top of the stitches, so that whenever you trim, you really only have to trim once. Just trim one side, trim this, and just take these, get rid of them. Let's take a peek and see how that looks. Yeah, that's good. So the seam goes right out to that corner there. Let me try the next one. Do the second one. Put the 5.5-inch line along this line here, and if you have to tweak it a little bit, ooh, I'm good at tweaking, you can just go ahead and pull them underneath the ruler until they're perfect. Okay, one side, the other side, and I have 2 units that I want to show you how to press them in 2 different directions. The one that has the long dark strip on it, that piece, this is the piece that goes on the top. You set that seam, open, press, and so that the seam is going towards that long dark. The second one, you turn over so that the triangles are on the top, the 2 medium triangles. Set that seam, lift, and press right into it. They're opposite directions so that when you finally sew the block together, then those 2 seams are just going to lock together. Here, let me show you like this, so you can see how they're going in opposite directions. Before we go on, let's just cut off those tips. We want no tips hanging out. Cut off your tips on both sides. Get rid of them. Now, this is the block right here, and these are the 2 pieces with the long lights going in, and then the 2 darks in the opposite corners. So when you flip them right sides together, then this is going to roll in and lock right here, down here. This will also lock together, as you see, and then we're going to go straight down. This will lock right here. They're going in opposite directions, and then the same right down here. So let's just see if I can get these blocks sewn together. You know, another place that I really enjoyed teaching was right here in San Diego. We went down to the Grand Horton that has a ghost. And of course, we were teaching in the same room as the ghost. Okay, let me roll this back. Look at that seam going there. And then I just take my fingers and kind of lock them together, hold them down with a stiletto as they go along right here. Lift up and stretch. I'm just stretching one piece to match. Okay, this part, just assembly line sews right through there. At this point, you just wiggle, line them up. Helps if you hold your tongue just right and keep on going right across. Another trip I really enjoyed was teaching in the Inland Passage on the way to Alaska. Oh, that was great fun, looking out the window while we were sewing, seeing the whales, fantastic. You can see how you've got that seam right up there. I've got a good 1/4 inch. These are lining up along here. They're connecting right here. This looks great. One more. Okay, now, last seam. Flip them right sides together. These will lock together, but right here in the center, push the top seam up and the underneath seam down. So this is going to be the trickiest part. But you know, if it doesn't match right in the middle, if it's not perfect, you can always go by the rule that one of the students told me. She said, my teacher told me this rule, Al, you can go by too. She said, remember the 20-mile rule. She said, if you put it outside on your door and you drive past it at 20 miles an hour And it looks good. It is good. So we might have to give this very center the 20-mile rule. People say all different kinds of things. The galloping horse or the moving train. But we're going to take a look and see how it goes. Okay, let's see me. I'm going to see first. Perfect. Okay, so there you can see how that's matched all right in the center. For one last step, so it lays really flat, I'm going to go right here to this center seam and just clip this connecting thread. See if I can get that connecting thread clipped. And then there are 3 stitches going out, straight out. I'm just going to take the stiletto, lift those out, turn it over on this side, and pick those stitches out there. And then you just lay it flat and just work your fingers right in there, and you can lay open those seams so that they create a little 4-patch right in the middle. And then once you create that 4-patch, you can just press right around that center. Those seams will swirl around the center, and when you go to put your blocks together, in the next step, they will also lock in place. Let me just finish that. I'm going to get all of my blocks done, and I'll show you how to put them together on the design wall. The wall hanging has 9 blocks in it, so it's 3 blocks across and 3 down. Well, when you lay them out, you pay attention to the dark, and it keeps on alternating. So it's dark first, and then light, and then dark. And then underneath, the next row alternates again. And when you're placing out your blocks, you'll see with these light triangles, when you finally get 4 together, you create this little pinwheel right here in the center. Let me see, light up here, so it's got to be dark. Well, the lap robe has 12 blocks, twin has 40, queen has 64, and king has 81. That's a lot of blocks to make. Well, I want to sew it together in vertical rows, so I always take the middle row, flip it over to the left. This is going to be on the top of the stack, continuously stack, and then take the top block down to the top of the stack, down to the bottom. I'm going to sew these together, and I'll show you how to add that mitered border. This quilt is going so fast, we'll be gadding about in no time. Well, I added the strips to 2 sides for the miter already. Now, when you're planning the miter, you always make your strips longer than your quilt top. Always measure this distance, or the width of the strips, and make sure you have that same in length hanging out on the end, plus an inch or 2 just for good measure. The important part in a miter is also this last 1/4 inch right here. Stop stitching 1/4 inch away. Take your mitered strip, your strip you're going to miter, fold it in half and find the center point, and then pin it right sides together to the center of the quilt. And I think this is my miter right here, my center point right there. Then go along right here and you pin so that it stops 1/4 inch away from the end. Let me grab this pin right here, stick it in 1/4 inch, and let's take a look on the other side. So you can see that's where you stop your stitching. Well, I did these 2 pieces already, stitched them up in red thread just so you can see them. And when you fold them back, there you see that little 1/4 inch that's open. I actually did a locking stitch here, 1/4 inch away, and on the other side, another locking stitch. So these 2 ends are just completely free. Well, I like to press in my miters. I think that I get a good look from the front side, and that's mainly what you want, isn't it? A good look from the front side. So I'm just going to take this strip, press it out, and then take the strip on the top and fold it under at a 45-degree angle. Line up these 2 strips out here. Let's see if I can get this good. Oh, tuck it a little bit. You just have to play with it. And fold that under. And then once you think you have your miter all folded in, then take your 12.5 inch square up ruler and lay that diagonal line along there. Just check and see. I see that I could play with this just a little bit more to get that fold in place. But once you have the fold in, there, that's looking better, press it. Give it a really good press. How about some steam on there? And then carefully fold it back and put pins right along that fold. This is what we're going to sew on right here. From there, we're going to start right up here. This is going to be tricky. Going to fold everything back out of the way and just start right at that fold. Let's see if I can do it. Gosh, this one I remember one time. Okay, I've got that point right there. Use needle down, start right in the end, and so forward. I remember one time I was sewing, trying to get my miter in and could not do it. So in the end, I just cut a flower out, put it right on top. Okay, so I'm sewing right in that folded line. Let me take a look from the right side and see what we have. Oh, that's looking good. Now all I need to do is just trim it on the back side, spread that seam open, be a perfect miter. I need to pack for yet another trip. But before I go, I have some other Gad About quilts to show you. Well, Marie Harper made this twin-size quilt in just pretty shades of purples and greens. It's just beautiful. And to complete the ensemble, I made two shams. One with scalloped edges and one with straight edges, just a finishing touch. For springtime travel, Sue Bouchard made this wall hanging just bloom with fuchsia hourglasses and lemon green and soft blue pinwheels. Well, Sandy Thompson quilted it. Oh, she did wonderful feathers in the border. Now for fall travel, Teresa made this one with pumpkin hourglasses and sage and green pinwheels. Well, it's a 12-block lap robe. It is perfect for snuggling under on a crisp day. Well, for happy time travel, I made this one just in bright baby colors. Oh, it's so festive. You know, this design came from an old 1930s envelope just stuffed with fabric scraps. It was so much fun to find. Now the brochure says, world's finest quilting materials with 2 pounds of pieces equaling 15 yards. Now right here is our block, and I thought it said bench square. Well, I looked through every identification book for bench square. I couldn't find it until I realized it said 6-inch square. Joke's on me, huh? But just take a look at all those tiny templates. Really something. Now, Mrs. J.H. Jordan of Allendale, Illinois, received it from the Francis Mill Company in Marion, Illinois. Now, the envelope is quite interesting because on the other side, she penciled Ma Perkins, Cincinnati, Ohio, probably just so she could remember that name. And then she also wrote this little poem. The road to happiness is not hard to find. It's what we do for others that brings content to mind. Well, that's a great bit of advice. So don't gad too much. You get your quilting done.